the amount of data is almost bypassing the operator and the coach, and how can we harness that data as an industry, to train, to create that ultra personalization, that extra touch point, be it the receptionist, be it your own personal trainer, rather than kind of losing out on that opportunity.
I don't think AI had the impact that we all thought it did in 2024. It doesn't mean that our time for AI is not going to come. I think it's going to come in 2025.
Where the ability to predict what's likely to happen to people and potential diseases is becoming extremely affordable.
And you shouldn't be measuring your performance by retention of clients, but whether you're getting them more healthy.
Health has become a new status symbol.
Welcome to what is the last episode of the year of Lifts. Mo, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. It is a cold day here. I know you've got the hat on. I don't have the hat on, probably because I have some hair, but it was 15 degrees when I woke up. That's in Fahrenheit, not Celsius this morning. So it was really, really cold. But Matt, I can't believe it's been our first full year of lifts, because last year we started in October. Now we're a full year in. People think we've been doing this thing for many, many years, but in fact, it's just been over a year. So it's been quite a year. We've got to do an episode where we kind of reflect back and look back at some of our coolest moments of the year. But yeah, can't believe we're here.
Well, we got a very interesting episode this year, and I'm hoping I'm going to learn something from a gentleman that I've got to know certainly over the last few years. So I'll let you do the honors of introducing this one, then, Mo.
Sure. No, well, I'm excited. We have Giles Denning, who is master of events. He is the Wizard of the Oz for PerformX Live. Really been the person behind the scenes, pulling it all together. Matthew, in fact, you and I are going to be at PerformX Live this year, coming up in February. So I'm incredibly excited. They're in a city in the UK, Birmingham, this year, which I've never been
Birmingham.
to.
That's how you say it.
Birmingham. Did I
Birmingham.
not say it right? Okay, so I'm already butchering it. I'm already butchering it, but it's not London. It's not London. And I know it's a few hours away from us. So I looked at it on the map. And yeah, I've never been there before, but it's one of the cities that you hear about and you don't go. I think maybe it's like what Chicago is to other people coming here, where people come to New York and LA, Miami, but they know of Chicago, but they need a reason to go there. But it's a wonderful city. So I'm excited for PerformX, for going to Birmingham. Hopefully I said that correctly this time. And Giles, welcome to our last episode of Lifts in 2024.
Thank you, guys. Absolute pleasure to be on. I've been a huge fan for years, so yeah, absolute pleasure to be on, and also a real pleasure to have you as part of our advisory board, which is a really important thing for us in building out our events, is having the right people helping shape it and get the right voices, the right topics, the right voices on our stages. So yeah, huge pleasure having worked with you both on it over the last few months to bring it all together, sort of thing. So yeah.
Well, there's a number of, three of us were having some conversation prior to this, and from what I understand, there's a few themes that you guys and your advisory board have come up with that your view is these are quite important themes. You've got speakers that are going to be presenting next year to talk about some of these things, and we're going to be quite ambitious. We're going to aim to get through as many of these. I think we've got about 7 of them here at the moment, which we'd like to discuss. And so just before we get into it, so the 7 themes that you sent over, is this really a combination of some of the conversations that you've been having with your board about items that you believe are important for a lot of the people that will be coming to the event next year?
Yes. So ultimately, we are the Business of Fitness show. So as Mo said, we're in Birmingham, 26th, 27th of February, 2025. And what this is our 6 or 7 most important topics for our main stage. So we have, these are the kind of 6 or 7 key themes that we've identified with the advisory board, which are the most important topics to help shape the industry leaders, decision makers year. And the first one, I think, to kick off with is which was actually quite a unanimous um, decision from the board was digitalization, and we all landed on one particular name, which Mo was able to help us get an introduction to. So I'll let Mo dig into this one because this is his area of expertise. But Mo, why do you think it was such a key pivotal kind of topic and person, landing Kristen Holmes from Whoop?
Well, I think, one, I was sitting back and just listening into all the other members because obviously they always have this feeling of being biased. I come from technology, I'm in product. So digital to me has always been something that is very much natural and something at the forefront of what I think. But what's interesting is looking at the advisory board, which is, by the way, a very diverse mix of different operators, different modalities. You've got some wellness people in here, you've got some thought leaders in there. So I think it was a really interesting mix. But a lot of them said digital, to my surprise, was the main thing that they were looking forward to. And they had a lot of questions around, and how do you bring in digital and wearables into the gym ecosystem? And when we were thinking about that, it's just interesting how we ended up to our like headliner speaker. Instead of thinking of some big names and some really kind of names that would just pop, I think the team was very thoughtful to say, let's bring someone of high value that can help really teach us instead of us having a name. Because when you think of headliners, a lot of times you get, like sports figures or celebrities just because you want to hear them talk and hear about some inspirational story. Not saying that the headliner here is not going to do that, but this is also one that I think is going to be highly valuable, highly educational, and frankly, someone that you don't get to hear from live very, very often. And we were talking about the topic and going around the room, the one name that came up was Whoop. And talking about Whoop, I think you said, okay, should we get Will Ahmed on? Who would be fantastic to have on, right? And but he would, to me, want to be that aspirational, inspirational person. But we went to Kristen Holmes, who is their chief science officer, who's a doctor, who is incredibly well versed and is quickly becoming an influencer, if you can call her that, in the category. So I was really glad to see her come in, and I think when she comes in, I'm excited to hear her talk. And I've heard her talk a few times. I've had a chance to meet her a few times. Chief science officer of Whoop, but this is really a space that she's actually passionate about. So this is not for people coming to listen, not going to be a stage where she's just talking about Whoop. That certainly is not what this is about. I think what she's going to be talking about is really how do you leverage wearables, data, personalization to ultimately, one, improve the experience in the gym, to improve things like engagement, retention, churn, all the things that we always think about, but also to ultimately help improve health outcomes. How do we democratize wearables such as that we can help people live healthier lives? So I can't believe when I just did the intro. So you're the one that Giles ultimately pulled her in. So I'm excited for that.
No, I'm super excited. I think it's and the main kind of we like to have operators on that board, on our advisory board as well. So you're kind of hearing it from the people who are at the show and will be benefiting from it. And I think the interesting thing was this rise in obviously the huge amount of data that we've now got around those visitors, and the other 23 hours they're not in the gym, but how that's sort of not being capitalized upon, and how it's sort of you're almost bypass, like the amount of data is almost bypassing the operator and the coach. And how can we harness that data as an industry, to train, to create that ultra personalization, that extra touch point, be it the receptionist, be it the your own personal trainer, rather than kind of losing out on that opportunity. So I think it'll be a huge one for us.
Well, that leads us into the next one, I think, which is premiumization. You got another interesting speaker in this section, and I can't help thinking back to the podcast we had a couple of weeks ago, Mo. You had a gentleman on there that was really talking about data and how the level of personalization that's now available, or some of these companies are working by tapping into some of these wearables and being able to communicate very specific messages to specific people, exactly the right time. Kind of got me thinking about this sort of premiumization and personalization end of the market, where I'm sure like a lot of these things are going to start coming together. So I guess first question to you, Giles, is who have you got to speak in this section, and why why did you make that decision?
Our thought process this year was to bring a real global thought leadership to our stage. So we are, as well as having you guys from the States, we have also got a second headliner from the States. So Jeff Sweefel, who's spent obviously 25 years at Lifetime and created Miura, which launched recently with alongside the kind of the Equinox $40,000 a year gym membership. And I think this is just a fascinating topic because where we're seeing an increase in spend from the consumer, both from the kind of aging and the Gen Z. Again, we're kind of seeing that potentially bypassing the operator. So I think where the question we're asking him is like, where are we leaving money on the table? And what does that premium offering look like? And I think it's so fascinating because obviously that's the top end of the spectrum, but where can you add in it, even if you're just adding an extra £50 a month option or £100 a month option and offering that out to your members, what does that look like? And it's so fascinating to look at kind of, because when you initially look at these, you think, is it just sort of for like the biohacker or the kind of person that's literally obsessed with their data and that kind of thing, because you've got all blood work that's done as part of it. But it's kind of unpacking it. And sometimes it is just a case of bolting on and pre-booking personal training sessions for people and sleep sessions and recovery sessions, just so they've pre-booked. It's not necessarily as scientific as it has to be, kind of thing. So I think it's just going to be a fascinating topic.
Are seated machines slowing your members down? With many people spending the whole day sitting in their car, at the office, and in front of screens, then you have to ask yourself, should you really be sitting down when you're exercising? As seated machines do not promote all body movement, then a solution that encourages standing, putting the body in an upright position, will make workouts more effective. Help your members break from sedentary habits with more active training. Are you interested in creating a more dynamic workout environment? Then contact us today.
What is Mo? What is for anyone who's listening who's not aware? Like what is Miura? Are you experienced with the product?
So I've had a chance to work with Jeff, and I know Jeff. He is an industry icon, as Giles mentioned, spending a quarter of a century building up Lifetime with Brahm. Recently, he's done a couple of really interesting projects, starting with Miura, and I'm going to get to the second one here soon after this one. Miura is a club within a club. It is a wellness clinic that they currently has a single location at the headquarters in Chanhassen, Minnesota. But what they've done is taken some of the recovery therapies like IV drips and others and really expanded it to everyone else. And this includes nutrition, training, and otherwise. And they're also exploring newer opportunities. So what's interesting, this is a question which I get a lot is, are we creating a gap? Is the gap between this premium sector and everyone else, when we focus so much on access and democratization, is this an issue? And I kind of look at the design labels where you've got a lot of the premium designers doing a lot of the research, identifying the trends, then you find it happening in the lower brands as well. That's really what's happening here. So you've got some of these premium brands that are focused on innovation, kind of testing out, curating the product. And what we find happening is that it is working its way onto other brands as well, which are more accessible. Jeff recently has also launched, and this just happened a couple of days ago, a really interesting club with the Green Bay Packers, Matthew. So he has designed and launched a really cool gym in Madison. I'm sorry, in Green Bay, Wisconsin, rather, which is connected to the Green Bay Packers. So he's an icon in the industry. I'm really excited that he's going to be coming over as well.
Well, the next subject then, which I think you were going to touch on, is AI. We covered it. We had a predictions episode we did with Anthony just a week or so ago, and since then I've I kind of thought that there wasn't a lot happening in the fitness industry on AI, but since then I got to speak to some people, and I obviously can't provide too much information. But whilst it's there's been a bit mixed bag in terms of how much of an impact it's had and who's driving it and the various different solutions. What I did hear is there's some very big brands that are doing some really exciting stuff, and they seem to have spent a number of years looking at different solutions, partially doing it themselves in-house and partially working with some external people, which I'm sure we'll start to hear about as we come into next year. So since that episode, I think I've updated my own personal view on the impact that AI has has had on the industry this year. And curious, Giles, what are some of the things that you think that your audience that's going to be coming to the event are going to be looking for from this subject in 2025?
Well, I think we've got the guru of AI, Ian Mullane, talking on this topic, and he's known about AI for about 10 years before anyone else. So, but I think the interesting thing with AI and what he said to me, what stuck with me was, I said, "Is there a good book I should read on it?" He said, "There's no point because they go out of date before the book's even published. So it's just evolving at such a pace." But I think the interesting thing, our industry is keen to do. I think that the thing with our industry is it's always known to be slow to adapt to these kind of things. And Ian's thought process is always, you need to, this is the kind of thing you can't just watch it go by. So I think he's been talking about some operators he's been working with, and the sales process has just completely 10x just from using this tool instead of manual process and things like that. And then also obviously the retention piece. But I think the interesting thing is the kind of where does it sit and where will it land? Because you've got kind of are people's jobs at risk? Are people kind of looking to outsource? There's talks of apps that can program you for £7 a month, completely AI based and things like that. So it's kind of where do you harness it, and then leaning more into the skills of a coach in terms of your accountability and your people skills and those kind of things, and then using it to do all the back of house stuff that you don't otherwise want to do. I think that's the most interesting angles on it. But yeah, I'll be interested to hear your thoughts on it, Mo, and where you think it's kind of has it adapted at the pace you thought it would this year, and what do you think it will look like for next year?
That's really interesting because I think going back to our predictions episode, Matthew, last year, I put AI and also GLP-1 as two things that I felt like the industry was really going to hop on and is going to have high impact. GLP-1 certainly has, right? That is one that has changed the game, but depending on whatever side, I guess, regardless of whatever side you sit on it, you can't avoid the impact, and it's had an immense impact. But going to AI, I don't think AI had the impact that we all thought it did in 2024. It doesn't mean that our time for AI is not going to come. I think it's going to come in 2025. So I'm going to just push forward that prediction. And I think we did in our predictions episode to say that 2025 is we're going to see a remarkable shift on the impact of AI in the fitness industry. I also think that AI is going to benefit our industry and have a greater impact in our industry more than any other industry when you're looking at it, when you look at the scale of the impact. And Giles, the things that you've mentioned, but also looking at, what it's going to do for nutrition, everything from scanning foods to looking at, food sensitivities. For instance, I have, two smart rings I have on. On my left hand, I have an Ultra Human ring. On my right hand, I have an Aura ring. I'm just looking at some comparative features between the two, but they both have AI in them. And a year ago, both of their AIs would really give me feedback that was actually very different, which is scary. Today, which is the reason I have both rings on, their feedback are actually very similar. So what this tells you is that AI is just getting smarter. The feedback is getting more accurate. And as we see it trend towards that, you're going to see more and more use cases of it. Now, Josh, you mentioned sales. I think sales is one of the areas that we're going to see the first adaptation of AI, really because the sales process in the gym, which the classic sales system was really mastered. In fact, I learned all about it, Matthew, from a old episode of Escape, where you had Mark Mastrov on talking about how he revolutionized sales and how we kind of created the modern sales process. But that process that Mark Mastrov created for 24 Hour Fitness is now being upended by AI because consumers are changed. Consumers have changed. They could even sign up entirely through AI. In fact, there are some gyms that you could do a complete sign up flow right now, and I think Ian's working with some of them directly through AI. So I think sales is going to be one, but I think we're going to see other applications of AI happen in 2025.
Well, the next subject then is the future of recovery on the gym floor. I think this has been an interesting one. It is a buzzword, and I think it's a big buzzword. And depending on the type of facility that you have, everybody's scrambling to find different solutions. Some people have kind of got it dialed in and figured it out, and then I think there's still a lot of people really understanding that it's an important part of their business, but not really sure about how to execute it. And I think partly because of some of the gym floor based solutions, particularly ones that where there's a requirement not to be too heavy around manning of staff. I think those are the ones which are still to be still to be figured out. So Giles, we got a couple of interesting speakers, I think, on this one. So tell us a little bit about why this one was important, and then who you got presenting on the subject.
Yeah, so this one was a couple of real experts that you were able to connect me with, Richard Boyd and Ian O'Dwyer, and I really liked having chatted to them. I really loved and listened to your Escape episode with them. I loved their approach to. I think the fact that they have done this stuff for years in terms of sports science, so they've prescribed recovery and they see it as important as the training to enhance performance. So I think for them it's just such a no-brainer how the process works. And we've actually been talking to them about our gym of the future concept and kind of making that whole process and re-looking at how the gym floor could look. So yeah, a really fascinating topic, but just rethinking what recovery looks like. It's not necessarily a pay as you go or a put some things in the corner. It's actually like a whole process that coaches could look at, putting the power back in the hands of the coach or the operator and saying, this is what recovery should look like, and prescribing recovery as a PT and that sort of thing. So it's super fascinating topic.
And I think when the thing that kind of opened my eyes up when I spoke to them is just the philosophy behind it. I think that puts a different perspective on what people are looking to achieve. And I won't sort of give away the punchline because I'm sure that's sort of a big part of what they're going to be talking about. But I think just their approach and their background and some of the goals that businesses can be setting when they're considering what to use. I think that will help a lot of people get some clarity around, what's the best way to manage this within their business.
Definitely.
Longevity and biohacking. This seems as though it's been one that's been talked about for a long time. I'm trying to think. Ben Greenfield, I think he was one of the guys that I'd followed for a long time, and there's Dave Asprey. So it's biohacking is something that I think has been around for a long time, but I've never really seen it. I've never really seen it talked about in any of the gyms that I've been involved in. So I'm curious in terms of, I don't know, gentlemen, that you got presenting on this one, and I'm also curious as to how that's playing in more of the commercial fitness space.
Yeah, I think for this one, so Tim Gray is the UK's leading biohacker, and he runs a big show over here, and I think he does one in Texas as well, actually. And he was able to fly over. I was able to connect with Ben Greenfield, Gary Brecker. He brought over some huge names for this show, and I just thought there's a lot of overlap in terms of what we're doing. Like walking around his show, it's all the kind of light blocking, like all these hacks and just everything. I was just walking around. It's like paradise kind of thing. Could have spent thousands, but I thought there's so much overlap, and there's a really good speaker. We've got Adrian Herbert, who is talking about the 5 modern wellness consumers. And there's quite a lot of overlap with these consumers and this kind of longevity biohacking. It's not just that kind of aging demographic, but the people that are in their 30s trying to prevent or slow down or reverse aging almost. So I think there's a huge overlap in terms of that. So I think bringing that more mainstream, and I think it overlaps with that, the premiumization model and these ultra expensive memberships where you're getting all your blood tests done and IV drips and all that sort of stuff. So I think it's going to be a real interesting one as we look to kind of take more of that share of wallet. So yeah.
This is one I'm really interested about. And Matthew, I know we get a lot of questions around biohacking and what are things that we do. And I mean, I know I get a lot of questions around that too. And I'm always experimenting, right? I mean, even something simple like, are we able to change our behavior? I think for the first time, we live in an age, I think the reason why this is so prevalent is we live in an age where not only can you kind of qualify like how you feel by doing something, but you can also quantify it. So I know, Matthew, for example, we talked about you using mouth tape on a recent kind of cross-Atlantic flight, and we have our Oura rings on, and we could see the impact of alcohol or changes in our diet. We've all at some point worn a CGM, I think, and kind of tracked our how does what we eat impact that. And by making these very little behavioral and habitual changes, it's had a much greater impact on our life, right? We're sleeping a lot better. We're able to think a lot better. My face, and I've always kind of had acne issues. My face is more cleaner. And I think the awareness of biohacking has really like increased because of people like Tim Gray, Ben Greenfield. I'll even say Brian Johnson takes it a bit of an extreme, but all of this, and I think that we're still in the very early stages of what this means to be. However, gyms and operators have actually not grasped onto it. So a lot of this has been driven by consumer awareness and by consumer demand, but you see very little of this being offered at gyms. So I think this is a great opportunity, Giles, for gyms to understand what consumers are really, practicing and then bringing into their gyms. So something that and hopefully gyms could be supportive and offer services to complement what they're doing.
So yeah, definitely.
And the next subject is the fitness industry's role in well-care, and this is an interesting space, which I think is going to massively change over the next few years. Like I subscribe to this newsletter that came in this morning. A lady called Kathy Wood, and she's got a pretty interesting newsletter. It really talks about technology, their company's investments and what they see happening and where they would suggest investing. But so there's this one this morning. It talks about, I'm not too familiar about what it is, but there's this new they're combining something called single cell genomics with AI, and they reckon now that the cost of doing this was significant. Not too many years ago, but the costs now have come down to such an extent where the ability to predict what's likely to happen to people and potential diseases is becoming extremely affordable. And so you can kind of go and get these tests, and it will basically provide you with predictive and prescriptive medicine, which you would have thought will include things like health and diet and nutrition as part of that. And so I think, as when you're looking at the power of AI, some of the technology that's out there, that costs will be coming down over the next few years. Like you can't help to see that there's going to be massive disruption in this field, and it's really going to be how our traditional fitness industry that I guess we sort of operate in. It's really how they can somehow get involved and be part and partnering and looking at some of this stuff, because I think it's going to, where the industry's really struggled with data to demonstrate any massive benefits. I think now there's going to be the ability to make those connections, and then it's like, well, how do you now sort of prescribe that, and who are going to be the people that are going to be delivering? So Giles, again, interested in who's going to be speaking on this one, and what are your thoughts on why that's important?
So this one, we've got our own Ollie Patrick. So Ollie is a real gem of ours. He's part of our advisory board from the start, and he's a real guru on this sort of thing. And he's recently become a bit of a TV star, which is nice to see, but well deserved. But he talks a lot around his frustrations around how the fitness industry is not like the fitness industry is the obvious fix to this problem, but we're still struggling to see an increase in that percentage of people active in the UK. We're still at that sort of 15% penetration rate, and then the typical the wellness system, the medical system being very reactive rather than proactive. And the metrics of what is seen as healthy, it's only until you've sort of hit the red that you're then seen as unhealthy. So it's the fitness industry's role to look after those not quite super unhealthy, but the you definitely unhealthy bracket. And I think it's something that he's super passionate about, and such an important thing for our industry to take ownership from, especially with the amount of clients that sit within that general population bracket. And as you were saying around data, another thing that he constantly says, which sticks with me, is how gyms are measuring their performance. And you shouldn't be measuring your performance by retention of clients, but whether you're getting them more healthy. Which it sounds obvious, but it's such like you said, how has your gym been this year? Yeah, we've retained this number of members, but how many have actually become more healthy? How many have, these kind of longevity metrics, VO2 max and strength and those kind of things, are they actually improving? And he talks so much sense. So yeah, excited to have an evolution of Ollie's talk.
No,
Mo, what's your thoughts on this one?
Well, one, I think you can have an entire conference on this topic, on this change to well care. I mean, seriously, because there's so much education that needs to happen. And look, both Matthew and I, come here from the US with our healthcare system, which is the best in the world and the worst in the world at the same time. And I agree that gyms have a better role to play. And obviously, I love talking to Ollie Paddock. We've had him on, I think, once or twice, Matt. I know you've spoken to him a bunch of times. And every time I speak to him, I hear him speak, I'm always learning. It's always like, and he never repeats the same thing. So I'm really excited to see him again. Hopefully I'll get to see him before this event. But I think, when it comes to the Fit Pros, they are better placed. He's absolutely right. They are better placed to kind of managing a member's health journey over the doctor. But the thing to keep in mind is doctors have so much training and experience. And we as a society, because of how obsolete healthcare training is, we tend to kind of discount that, right? But you're talking about people that have been through 4, 8, sometimes 12 or 16 years of training, but they don't have enough focus on the preventative care. And I think we're a little bit foolish to think that someone that has a 3-month certification or a year certification can come in and replace the doctor. I don't think that's true. I think that the truth is that I don't want gyms or anyone to have this idea that I'm going to hire an educated and trained person. But they don't have the right training. I mean, I think even in med school here in the US, I don't know if the UK is different, they literally spend about 4 hours on how to eat a proper diet in their entire 4 years of training. Like they just don't have the right focus on it. So it's more a matter of how can a Fit Pro be complementary and supplementary to a healthcare system that really needs it right now, not replace it, but really needs it. So I'm excited to hear, what he has to say. But this also presents an entire opportunity. So we've already kind of talked about 2 major transformative sessions that you're going to have, Giles. One is AI and the transformation that operators have to do in their gyms to be relevant. But the second is really welcome. These are 2 transformative changes which are happening in parallel.
And connected as well. I think I wouldn't have thought that some of that would be possible without those 2 being sort of where they are at the moment, which I think is an interesting discussion, as you said, on its own. So we come to the end of this. That's gone really quick. That seems like we've seems like a short episode, but probably it wasn't. So we come on to the biggest trends and predictions of biggest trends of 2024 and predictions for 2025. And Mo and I have we have had a whole episode on this, so I think it'd be interesting to hear what you're seeing, Giles, in your world with many of the people that you've spoken about, and Mo and I can jump in and comment.
I think the obvious is the massive growth of paddle that we're just seeing over here in the UK. It's going absolutely nuts. So we're looking to incorporate that into our next consumer show for sure.
Is that Giles? Is it called paddle or paddle, or is there kind of like a?
You
I
hear
hear
both,
different
don't you?
people
Yeah.
describe.
And pickleball, which is a slightly different version of it for older people apparently, but. Yeah, that and obviously the huge growth in competitive fitness, I think is just taking over the world right now. But I think the most interesting one I see is the premiumization. And we've got Jack Thomas, who you guys know, also coming over to do a talk on lessons that we can learn from hospitality. And he's doing a survey he's been doing a survey of quite a lot of the London-based gyms. And I know he's had a good chat with JC of the Foundry and Rez of Boxer and House of Fitness are both on our advisory board. And I think it's just such an interesting lesson because I know both of those guys well, and they spend a lot of time immersing themselves in premium hospitality and taking those lessons back to their operation. So it's very deliberate, which was the thing Jack found most interesting. It's not by accident that he's gone in, measured a gym based on hospitality metrics of customer service, and they've both smashed it out of the park because they literally have built these entrance foyers that are like you'd expect in a nice hospitality establishment, whereas some gyms you can walk in and you've got a load of smelly trainers by the front door and a coach stretching, and it's not what you'd expect, especially when you're targeting general population and you've got someone straight off the couch that doesn't really want to be there, and they've walked in and go, okay, this definitely isn't for me, this is a load of blokes all just doing some kind of heavy lifting workout, and you completely put them off straight away. So having those kind of nice touch points, making them feel like they've come into somewhere premium is so important. So I think with the rise in these kind of wellness hotels and rise in wellness travel, and actually what Adrienne was saying is this kind of that is where people's disposable like luxury income is now going. Instead of where it used to be luxury watches and cars, it's now kind of these treatments and this rise in this kind of Saudi 7-star wellness travel and that kind of thing. So I think that's the thing that I think will be most interesting.
And just a quick follow up on that one. I'm certainly not as connected to the UK market and some of the things that are being built and thought of as I used to be. And I was very curious, specifically as it relates to the UK. What are some of the interesting models? You've referenced a couple of names there that I hadn't heard of before. But what are some of the interesting brands outside of the ones that you probably see and people talk about all the time? But is there any new names that we should keep a lookout that are doing things that are a little bit off the wall and a little bit more innovative than probably what we've heard before potentially?
I think what springs to mind, and it's well, not super recent, but I think they're going to be expanding what they're doing massively is what Everlast, the guys at Everlast are doing with obviously they're now they're backed by the Frasers Group, and they are building these sort of luxury like high quality, low price. So you've upgraded for the budget gym, and if you I went to their flagship. And it's incredible. It's like 8 different boutique workouts on the gym floor. So you're walking up this because they're always as part of their shopping centers, because obviously they're part of they've got the sports. They're doing these kind of towers where you get a Sports Direct, then a Flannels, which is a premium shopping center. And then you go into the gym floor. So they've taken over old kind of Debenham sites and that sort of thing. And you just come up the escalator onto this gym floor, and it's just completely immersive. But you've got things like smoothie stations, you've got things like reformer Pilates, even ice baths in some of them. But you're paying don't quote me on this, but something like £35 a month.
Wow.
And it's incredible. And I think they're just about to roll it out kind of across the country. And I know Martin Oakey well, and they're just super on the pulse. And Dan Summerson, who was Tribe founder. And yeah, they're just really on the pulse. They're just everywhere at every event, just soaking up what's going on. And the nice thing about it is you've got these boutiques that, you know, the luxury boutiques that you would pay good money for one class of, but you've got them on the gym floor, so you can hear it. You've got the energy. You've even got a high rock station on the gym floor. And then when the classes aren't running, you can use these stations. So you've got a full boxing ring that you can go and have a go in. You can have high rocks class, all the different workouts, but within the gym floor, not in closed off rooms. So yeah, I'm a big admirer of what they're doing. I think that could definitely be the future.
No, any final thoughts on your side?
Well, I think kind of going back, Giles, to what you said before, as it relates to the generations kind of trading the luxury watches and cars for fitness and wellness, it's because I think health has become a new status symbol. Like when you kind of go into events now, and you kind of, you know, people are placing a value and a price on looking good, on feeling good, on being able to just do the things right. Like, I mean, even today, whenever people visit me here in DC, I'm always like encouraging them, let's go for a walk, let's do something active, because I think that just is just kind of where things are going, and it's a positive thing to see. And I agree with one, we had Jack Thomas on the podcast reviewing his report, and I think it's incredibly comprehensive. In fact, we couldn't even cover the whole thing, so I'm excited to see him kind of come to the event as well. But this premium experience is really important, because if you think about it, the trend is going that some people are returning to work, some are not, but either way, even if they do, it's somewhat of a hybrid model. Homes are getting so much smaller, right? Because homes are getting very, very expensive to live in, especially in the big cities. Coffee shops are overcrowded. So what is this true third space? It's the gym. And when you go to the gym, you no longer want some grungy, smelly thing in the basement, but you want something that feels clean and welcoming and inclusive of all kind of people. You can go have a nice shower. You can do some work. I mean, that's ultimately what this is becoming. And people want something that is also affordable, right? Because just life is getting more expensive. So hopefully I'll get a chance to go to an Everlast. I know Giles, I met them at the advisory board meeting, and I've heard of them. Obviously, heard some really good things, but I've never had a chance to go to one. So maybe Matthew, when we're in the UK in a couple of months, we can go check one out.
Let's do it. Let's get a workout there.
That'd be great.
Well, that's it. I think we're at the end of the last episode of the year, Mo.
So I'm glad to end it off with a bang. Giles, we're so excited. Thank you for having us and the opportunity for having us be a part of PerformX. I'm excited to go to a new city, Birmingham. Did I get that right? Birmingham. And it's been a really interesting and I think transformative year. When you talk to anyone in fitness, some have had good years, some have had bad years, but everyone said that it's been transformative, and everyone is looking forward to 2025. We're looking forward to your event, and thank you again for having us.
An absolute pleasure. Great to have you involved. And just to give a little shameless plug of PerformX, we are NEC Birmingham, 26th, 27th of February over in the UK, obviously. And what we do is a powerhouse environment for the business of fitness. So we bring together the best leaders, thought leaders globally to our 4 stages. We cater to the industry leaders, C-suite, gym owners, coaches, and practitioners. Probably expecting about 6,000 people under the roof, and it's just an incredible vibe. I think we're lucky to work in the industry we do, and it just brings together a really good bunch of people and a lot of learning. We aim to sort of set everyone up for the year for the most successful 2025 by helping them understand what they need to know and facilitate those conversations. So yeah, absolute pleasure having you both involved in planning it and introducing me to some brilliant people for this year's show. So really excited.
Well, thanks, Giles. And that's it for this week's episode of the Lifts podcast. If you enjoyed the discussion, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with a friend or colleague. Thank you very much for listening.